Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this special session in the Edgware United Synagogue Adult Education Programme entitled From Our Lips to God's Ears. All the Edgware United Jewish music and cantorial sessions are presented in association with the European Cantors Association, and you can find past ones on the Edgware US YouTube channel. I'm now going to hand over to Geraldine Albach, co-founder of the European Cantors Association, who will tell us how tonight's presentation will be organised. We're now going to mute everyone, but at the end, you'll have the opportunity to contribute to the discussion by raising your virtual Zoom hand.
Thank you so much, Spencer. And the European Cantors Association is very happy to be presenting this very important session of the future of synagogue music, no less. And I'm glad to see that there are 60 people here, and to talk about and think about this project. So the European Cantors Association is an independent organization. It's established in the United Kingdom by Alex Klein and myself in 2012. It's a framework for cantors, prayer leaders, and others to engage in dialogue, training, and profile raising to ensure that the music of Jewish prayer continues to enhance synagogue services for generations to come. So Alex Klein is here. Alex is the director of the European Cantors Association, and he is recognized around the Jewish world for his lifelong passion for the music of Jewish prayer. He's led services, given lectures, presented conventions, and organized concert tours featuring some of the finest exponents. And we're very thrilled today to be have as our guest Simon Rocker. Simon grew up in Newport, South Wales, moved to London in the 1980s. He joined the Jewish Chronicle as a reporter in 1985 and is an assistant editor responsible for editing the Judaism and education sections of the Jewish Chronicle. He co-authored the memoirs of the late Rabbi Abram Levy, A Rocky Road, which was published in 2017. So there we are all set. I'm going to show you a PowerPoint and share my screen. And on this PowerPoint, you will see that we've got various videos to show you. And what these are our leaders, the leaders of the United Synagogue, talking about their feelings about cantorial music. But to start off with, we'll just have a little sound of some music from Lionel Rosenfeld. If this works.
Rabbi Lionel Rosenfeld of the Western Marble Arch Synagogue in London decided to do something to help, quite simply to make available filmed highlights of the Rosh Hashanah Musaf service, accompanied by his small choir, many of whom have been singing with him for more than 20 years, and several of whom are now living abroad. This film features pieces to give people a real taste of Rosh Hashanah, of saying the familiar prayers and singing the familiar tunes, in spite of all the difficulties of 2020.
Baruch Hu is the blessing introducing the Rosh Hashanah evening service. Variations of this traditional and beautiful High Holy Day melody are sung in Ashkenazi synagogues all over the world. I'm Lionel Rosenfeld. As well as being the community rabbi, I have the honor to lead services as the Chazan.
Okay, so thank you, Lionel. That was wonderful. So the chief rabbi, Ephraim Mervis, was talking to us at the European Cantors Association convention in London in 2013. He was then the chief rabbi elect, but it's interesting to hear what he said. We then hear Michael Goldstein, the president of the United Synagogue in 2022, talking on a series that the European Cantors set up called The Voice of the Cantor. And this particular session was called The Challenge of Modern Orthodoxy to the Cantor. And he talks about what music means to him. Then we will hear Chief Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, the late Jonathan Sachs, in 2010 about music, and then Raphael Zarim talking at the launch of Michael Jolly's book about cantors. So let's just carry on with Mervis.
Nusach is being lost in the Jewish world in a very tragic way. And even though you might daven on the odd occasion a bit more quicker than on other occasions, it should never be through sacrificing Nusach. Nusach is so important, and we have to guarantee that the traditional melodies and ways of leading the service will be preserved, please God, for the generations to come. So I therefore want to thank all the Chazanim here, those within our communities in the UK and from abroad. Thank you very much for being the Baal Tefillah, for looking after our services, giving a tone to our services, enabling us to have wonderful services that people want to come back again and again for. It's thanks to you that we have outstanding Shul Tefillah. So I want to thank you for being Chazanim, people who oversee what's happening in the community, people who take on a pastoral role as well, people who connect well with the members, who are lovely individuals, as a result of which those in the community are proud of the man who's on the bimah and identify with his Tefillah. And thirdly, I want to thank you for being the Shaliach Tzibur, for identifying with the aspirations of our congregants, for being in touch with the community and representing us before HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So praise God, you'll have great success tonight and through all your wonderful initiatives, and may they be continued through everything that happens upon the bimbers of all of our shuls throughout the years.
It's always been very important to me. And music has always been very important to me. So in 1988, when Stephen Glass had the B'nai B'rith Festival Singers, and I see Steve Robbins here, I was really very excited to join him. And I have a fantastic memory, Steve, of us doing that first Slichot service at St. Petersburg Place with you and Jeffrey Schisler, which I think changed the way in which Slichot was viewed. So it's always been very important to me. When I came here to Mill Hill in 2003, I became chairman of the shul about 6 years later. And the first thing that I did is that I brought over Cantor Simon Cohen, who's been davening for us on the Yomim Noraim ever since. And we created a choir because Simon wanted to sing with a choir. And so it's something that I just believe that is in my blood, and I think is important in terms of being able to really understand and appreciate tefillah. And that to me is what it's all about. It's not necessarily about the word chazan, but it's about really being able to interpret tefillah using our wonderful nusach and having people who are leading services who understand what they are doing. I think that for me is the fundamental precept here. And I know the comments around colleges and all that sort of stuff, but I think, as you can hear from the panelists, it's really about, again, finding those people who can mentor you and actually help you through that process. So when I first started at Bal Shacharit on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, I went and spent a wonderful couple of hours with Lionel Rosenfeld, who talked me through it, and I've still got the tape that we worked on together. So for me, it's the fundamental understanding of the tefillah, the form of the tefillah, and really importantly, that using the incredible nusach, which we are so privileged to have been passed.
Okay, now Jonathan Sachs.
To me, music is the most spiritual form of expression that exists, and was absolutely central to Jewish spirituality. The Levites in the temple served God through music. And if my memory serves me correctly, now there once was a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord. But then you don't care for music, do you? Sorry, the reference, I don't know what that is, but Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah. I mean, we serve God with music. The Israelites at the Red Sea. Did you notice every time the Israelites said anything in the wilderness, they had a row. But when at the Red Sea they sang in harmony. And the reason is very simple, because words are the language of the mind. And when it comes to the mind, 2 Jews, 3 opinions. But music is the language of the soul. And when it comes to the soul, we're all we are all joined together as one person with one heart. And that is the power of music. There is something extraordinary about Jewish music in the synagogue. I don't know if you've thought about this, but the map of the Jewish heart is actually written in music. So you don't need to know where you are, you don't need to know when it is. You just listen to the music, and you know exactly what day and what time of the day it is, because morning, afternoon, and evening services each have their own tune. Weekday, the Sabbath, and the festivals all have their own tune. You read something from the Torah, it has one tune. You read it from the prophets, it has another tune. You read it from the writings, it has a third tune. And you learn Mishnah and Gemara, it has yet another tune. So you know exactly when and what kind of literature simply by listening to the music. And that musical tradition, which began in the temple, one of the most ancient continuous musical traditions there is.
Okay, and now Raphael Zarum.
I want to talk a little bit about the importance of singing as part of our prayer, and also to begin as the Dean of the London School of Jewish Studies, which was originally Jewish College. Many Chazanim trained over 150 years history of the college, and it's a proud memory and history, and many of them are in this book. So when we pray to God, when we're speaking from the heart, where our heart is reaching out to God, and the heart doesn't speak, the heart sings, and that's why singing is so essential as part of our davening. The Psalms, the Tehillim, the book of Tehillim is fundamental to our davening. Every day we're doing at least 10 Psalms in Shacharit, about 20 a day, and even more on Shabbat. It's fundamental to what we do. And the word that the Talmud uses for Psalms is Pesukei Zimra, verses of praise, verses of song. And it's also used for the beginning of our davening in the morning. And that key word zemer, which is Aramaic as Pesukei Zimra, but in Hebrew zemer, means both playing instrumental music as well as singing with musical accompaniment. It covers both. And the Psalms weren't said, they weren't recited, they weren't mumbled. They were sung by priests and Levites in the temple in Jerusalem. They're meant to be sung. And so often when I hear people in shul mumbling and not singing the songs led by the Chazanim, it's like, I mean, it's beautiful poetry, but it's like, imagine hearing somebody read you a Beatles song without the music. It's not the same experience. You need the full music to appreciate what it's all about. And that's why Mizmorim, songs or psalms, is the other name for Tehillim, is so fundamental to the way we can get involved. And of 57 of the 150 psalms actually have the word Mizmor in the title. It's so essential. And you might know that there are two ways that these Mizmorim, these 57 introduced. It either says Le David Mizmor, which is of David a psalm or a song, or Mizmor le David, a song of David. And the Talmud in Pesachim discusses why are some Le David Mizmor and why are some Mizmor le David. And they said it's because of the way David came to write them. Some of them, the words came to him first, his way he wanted to talk to God. And the music accompaniment of his harp, he thought of afterwards. The music then took him, and then he would be able to speak to God in prophecy. At other times, he'd begin playing his harp, have the music first, and then that would inspire him to have the words to speak to God. And even though that's the Talmudic explanation of it, I'd like to suggest that this is what our Chazanim do. We have the words in front of us, and sometimes they can get there, but when the Chazan begins to sing, it transforms us, and we can move even higher. And sometimes they start, as you did, David, without music, just nothing, there's no words, there's just a humming, and that gets us ready to leap when the words take off. So what I'm trying to explain, which is so fundamental, is that there is no really talking to God. There is only singing to God. And these Chazanim in this book, this list of all these people, are the ones that have been our guides. They take us on eagle's wings to heaven, if I can use that imagery. They're like air freight carriers. We get inside them and they take us up to be able to talk to God. That's exactly how it works.
Great. Thank you. Thought we'd have a little break there, and if there are people who are bursting to say something, Simon, did you want to make any comment at this moment?
I'll wait till you finish the next, the second part. So.
Okay, now I haven't been able to look at the chat, so if there's somebody who would like to just say something at this stage about what they've heard, then please raise your virtual hand so that I can see that. Or if there are not too many of you, just unmute yourself and say something. Boaz, go on.
Yeah, I'm sorry to talk again. And it might be a little provocative, so I want to first declare that I like Nusach. I think Nusach is extremely important, and I think that it just creates a specific experience for me. But before we get in terms of intellectual integrity, I have no choice but to think about, why do we need it? What does it do? And I need to eliminate four topics off the beginning. Yes, emotions, but any music provokes emotion. Doesn't matter what. We hear three notes, we get some emotion going on. So that's one thing. The second thing is in terms of biblical references and the Song and the Sea, etc. We don't know what happened until more or less the House of David. And let's take into account that the music that was presumably sung at the temple is not necessarily Jewish, because still Christianity came out of it and a whole bunch of sects. The real Jews came out later. So I think what we have to rely on is there is evidence in the Talmud, which I don't remember exactly, that yes, that everything we do have to do with singing. The last point is, we don't need Nusach to remind us what the occasion is. We have calendars. We go to say, we know it's Rosh Hashanah. We don't Nusach for that. So after eliminating all these four, why do we need Nusach?
Thank you, Boaz. We're not here to advocate anything specific. We're here to ask, what is the future? If we don't need Nusach, what are we going to have? If we don't need Chazanut, what are we going to have? If we don't need our traditional way of doing it, what are we going to have? Who's going to decide? How are people going to be trained? These are the questions that we're looking to the future. So I just want to make it clear that we're not here to say, at all costs, we've got to have Nusach back again, because, maybe we don't. Maybe it doesn't resonate with people anymore. So that's it. So can we have a couple of very short comments from, I'm frightened, Alex, to ask you to say something at this stage. Leah,
Geraldine, it'll be very, very quick.
yes.
It's just an observation. Every person who you played a tape of all said the same thing. The most important thing is nusach, and you've said it might not be so, and it allows you to know that whether it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Shabbat, Yom Tov, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, etc., etc. So that being that the focus, that's what everyone who spoke said, and I'm just reiterating that. So if you take that away, then there's no structure. That's it. End of subject.
Thank you
For
for
me,
saying
I'm
that.
not-
But on
I'm
the
just
other
thinking
hand,
right now.
Alex, you are saying, you are assuming that it does have that effect. But if nobody knows the different tunes for the different thing, then it means nothing. And you have
Well, then we have to educate
No,
people.
no, let's not go on with that anymore. So, Lee, have you got something just fresh and quick to say?
I totally agree with Alex. With respect, Boris, I really respect your scholarship, but I have to differ with you for a couple of reasons. Part of our job as Chazanim is to teach the people the tradition. People don't come into the world knowing it, but if they hear it and they are inculcated with it, they will learn to associate certain melodies with certain emotions, with certain moods. The melodies for Kabbalah Shabbat are completely different than the melodies.
Okay, yeah, all right. We understand that. So one of the things we're going to be searching our hearts for is, what does emotionally charge people today? And it may not be Nusach, because, for all the various reasons. David, did you want to say something quickly?
First of all, I'd like to say that Alex, I think, said it all, that the Nusach distinguishes the day. But apart from that, what I really find very difficult is that when people say they don't want long services and they don't want this and they don't want that, the truth of the matter is that most of them have never heard a proper service. Most of them have never heard the great chazonim and the choirs with which we grew up with. So they don't really know what they don't like.
Okay, thank you.
Pure ignorance on their part.
Okay.
And this I think stems a large part from the yeshivot.
Okay, well, we have to think about, if this is a problem, how does anybody want to solve it? And if they do want to solve it, what are they going to suggest? So Keith, a quick question before we go on to the next section.
Yeah. Good evening. Thank you, first of all, for hosting this evening's event and actually bringing this subject to the fore. It's one of the things that I sort of bang on about all of the time, and it's nice to hear that there are other people interested. For those that don't know me, I've been the choir master at Singers Hill in Birmingham for something like 20 years and singing with the choir for a long time before that. So I've certainly been brought up in the very traditional choral chazanut type of service. And it worries me greatly that this type of service is in huge danger of being completely lost. And the reason, or part of the reason for that, I think, is down to training. And we've had over the years, and I've worked with so many people with the title Chazan. They've come, they've charged a fee, they've been very nice people, they've sung songs that sound a bit like the traditional melodies, they've learned it from somebody who's learned it from somebody who's learned it from somebody. They've become distorted. It's one song to the tune of another with some Israeli folk song and a pop song thrown in here and there. And the traditional melodies are just going to be lost if that's the way that we go on. I've had chazans come who haven't got a clue how to read music, who have little or no voice training. And I believe that it starts, if we want to keep the traditional style of service that I'm referring to, and others have different variations on the same thing, then it has to start with training. It has to start with proper, formal singing training, voice production, breathing technique, reading of music. And if those things don't get introduced, all we get is lay people who are singing one song to the tune of another. So that's my pet hate for now. Thank you for allowing me to bang on about it.
Yeah, it's a really, really important question. But the question is this: why would anybody train if nobody's going to employ them? That's another huge question. Why would they bother? First of all, where would they train? And secondly, why would they train? But that's for the next part. I don't expect you to be able to answer it. This is the question that we're grappling with, because, as you say, if we ignore it and just let things drift, it'll be lost. And it'll be lost on the watch of the people in charge of synagogue bodies. And, you know, it's time they just sat up and thought about it. If they don't want it, that's fine. But if they do want it, maybe they have to do something about it.
It's up to the members of the synagogues to vote properly if they want to change something. If you don't vote or have your voice
but maybe the people
nothing's going to change.
But maybe the people in the synagogue are voting for change, Alex. We don't know. You know, that's the question. It's
So
a big
much of it
question.
is
We
led
don't
by
have an
rabbis.
answer. We don't have an answer. Let me share my screen again, and we'll show some young cantors talking about, first of all, we'll show the chief rabbi talking about what a cantor can do, and then we'll show some cantors talking about it. So if I share again, my PowerPoint. So come on, you need to move on. Okay, so part 2, there we are.
Who was the original chazan of the Beit HaKnesset? The Mishnah explains it was a man who would see to it that the chairs would be put out, that the Sefer Torah would be positioned at the right place, the bimah would be standing there waiting for the services to take place, and everything would be running smoothly. The ancient chazan was actually a hybrid of a gabbai and a shams, because he would oversee everything that was happening in the community. Hence chazan, the person who sees what's taking place and looks after the community. In the Gaonic age between the 7th and the 11th century, there were 2 significant developments. The first was that our services expanded. We had more and more prayers, and eventually we arrived at a standard order of service. But as our services expanded, ignorance increased as well. Fewer people were able to remember the services by heart, and so there was a need to appoint a professional to lead services in shul. And who were the natural people to look to? The chazan, the person who put out the chairs, the person who called people up to the Torah. They were the most knowledgeable. They knew the shul and its congregants inside out, and they were the obvious people to turn to. So therefore, the chazan became the person to lead the service. And as time went on, those who led the services were known as chazan for this historical reason. But I think that there's a powerful message here, because our chazanim need to be individuals who are in touch with the community. I don't expect our chazanim to put out the chairs, but I do expect our chazanim to be familiar with members, to be part of their lives. If possible, to come to shul for Shaprin Mincha Ma'ariv on weekdays, if it's practically possible for them. Because once you are part of a community, the community appreciates you, loves you, looks up to you, and when you're on the bimah davening for the community, they will welcome the role that you play. And then the third term, which is probably the most significant of all, it is Shaliach Tzibur. You're the representative of the congregation. Shlucho shel Adam kamoto, says the Talmud. A person's representative, a person's Shaliach, has his role. And therefore the Chazan represents the Jew in the pew. And in order to do so, one needs to have, and this I think is the key word for all Chazanim, empathy. And Stephen, I loved your article, which was in the Chronicle, I think it was 2 Fridays ago, and it's exactly what you said, in calculating how many Chazanish pieces to sing, what tone you set in the shul. You think of what's going on in the mind of your congregants.
So here is Stephen himself, Stephen Lees at Central Synagogue, telling you what he thinks.
Financial pressures I don't buy at all. That's the only thing we probably disagree with. Because I'm sure in the 50s and 60s there were financial pressures with synagogues, etc. I think there are different priorities today, and I completely agree that there are completely a whole lot of different services within a synagogue. I think whilst that's very good, we've got to see that the problem there is that chazanut can die out as a result of that. Because young people say, you know what, I don't want to go to the main service. Actually, I want to go to a really quick service. And my friend's going to daven. And you might understand the tefillah and what it means, but he's got no idea of the nusach. And I've even heard it with our rabbis in this country and other countries. You know, they'll do the kol nidre, I don't know, the ne'ilah, you know, kaddish to just the normal kaddish, you know? So I think that's part of the problem. If you're going to say, well, you know, the people who daven must be proper, they must know their stuff, well, they must also know the nusach. And if that has to be a defining point as to, you know, a limiting point as to who can daven, well, then most people who aren't proper chazanim can't do that. So that's another thing. I think the variety of synagogues is absolutely a valid point, that, as Michael said. Every shul is different. In my shul, I can sing the occasional Solomia, and they'll think that that's nusach and absolutely love it. And I know some of you will be crawling under the, you know, they think that's nusach for shalosh regalim. But nevertheless, I keep them interested, and then I go into nusach, and you know, and they get it and they understand that. So I think that's right. I would say United Synagogue, and Michael, again, you're gonna. I mean, I'm probably gonna get fired tomorrow, but this is me. Those you know me, I always like to say it as it is. You look on the website, there's nothing about Chazanim. Maybe I'm wrong. You show me. Michael, go look at that. Maybe that's the homework, you know. There's nothing about Chazanim. Every possible rabbi, but nothing about a Chazan. And I think, this is my view, and I've thought about it a lot, I think full-time Chazanut would be brilliant, and I'll tell you why. I think it would pay for itself in a way if we did it correctly. The first thing I would do is every Chazan at every shul would have to teach their bar mitzvah boys. You couldn't give it out to other people. So they'd be full-time, but they'd have to teach every bar mitzvah boy. That's the only way you get to really be part of that bar mitzvah boy or bat mitzvah girl's life, and to be part of their family and to grow your community. In the same way, the chazan has to do weddings at his shul of members. That's how it is in South Africa. You don't get someone from another synagogue going to a chazan from, let's say, Central going to sing in West End because they happen to like myself or something, or vice versa. So I think that would be good. And the other thing is to include every chazan at funerals, lavoyas, shivas, etc. That's when you really get to know the people, whether they're at their weakest, and you really get to know the people and to bring them into the synagogue. And so actually we can't do that. And so actually people see a chazan as someone who takes a long time, they might have a nice voice, etc. But do we really need him? No, because he hasn't taught our bar mitzvah boy necessarily. And I'm talking about London because I think like Albion, you know, it's different. Wasn't necessarily involved in this, wasn't necessarily involved in this. The rabbi was. So we don't need it. And how that would pay, for example, is you would up the chazan's salary to make it full time. And as a result, he would teach bar mitzvah. He wouldn't get paid for that because that would be in his thing. He would do the weddings. He wouldn't get paid for that because that would be included in there. And I think that's how you would grow communities. And I've seen this happen in South Africa. You know, those who are full-time, that's what happens. Those who are part-time, well, we haven't got any time for that. And actually, we're exhausted by the time we get to Shabbos. And oh my gosh, someone in my community passed away. I've got to quickly go and do a lavoya. You know, it should be the opposite. We should really be part of that community. I said enough.
Yeah, thank you.
Financial pressures I don't buy at all. That's
no, we've got to go to the next one, Stephen. You can't do it again.
the only thing we probably... financial pressure.
If you look at the role of the chazan as somebody leading the service on Shabbat and Yom Tov, then it's like a Formula One driver who knows how to keep his car clean. It's like a footballer who knows how to do keepy-uppies and no more. And ironically, what I'm saying is that leading the service is just a simple, small element of my role. You know, I perform at every wedding. I perform at every... No, forget that word perform. I officiate at every wedding. I officiate at every funeral. I officiate at every life cycle event, the good, the bad, the indifferent. I'm involved with families. And exactly like Stephen was saying, when we have a bar mitzvah in the shul, it's not me turning up on a Shabbat and getting to know the family there and then or in the lead up. You're part of their family. You're part of their family. You've built the relationship with them for years and years. And I have to pay a huge amount of tribute to my synagogue. And I know this sounds like the sort of thing that you would expect me to say, and I'm preempting what I'm about to say by saying that the UHC model, the model that our synagogue has adopted, is different to every single synagogue in the UK. Different to every single synagogue in the UK. They've always had a full-time cantor. When I came to the shul in 2006, I was third in command, put it that way, in that respect. And then I became second, still as a chazan. And then in 2013, 14, I took over from the rabbi and became what I would call everything, a call boy who did it all. And somebody who thinks a chazan is somebody who leads services, I think is missing the point. In my mind, there is, in the world exists what I would call a stage chazan and a community chazan. I have no desire to be on the stage.
Right. So the discussion is there a future for the traditional music? Should there be? What do people want? What do synagogues want? How is it going to be managed? And whose responsibility is it? So, Stephen, Simon, this is your moment to...
Yes, well, let me say a few words. I mean, that should be our focus. I mean, we tended to equate synagogue music with traditional chazanut, but it's not the only form. So the question is, how do we measure what the ordinary shul goer actually wants? How successful are communities in delivering what their congregants want? And if they are not successful, what steps can be practically taken? I doubt in this country, if you're talking about the number of chazanim, cantors across all denominations, full-time or part-time, we'd struggle to even get an egalitarian minyan. We've also heard, I mean, several contributors have also alluded to the increasing desire for shorter services. And I think that's accelerated even post-COVID. For example, I think the largest United Synagogue aspires to complete its main Shabbat morning service in 2.25 hours. So the question is, what room does that leave? So these are all the kind of, so the question are the trends very much against the sort of survival of what we've known as traditional chazanut, and are there other forms of shul music which are valid and can be successfully transmitted? So
thank you. So raise your hands if you want to make a comment, but just remember that we're looking to the future. We're not saying, we have to go back to what was. We're never going to go back to what was. What was has been. We have to look at what's going to be. So Michael Binstock, can you unmute and give us your short views, please?
Right. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. I had the privilege of joining the Chazanut class of Jewish College back in the 60s, and rejoined in the 70s after my first position up in Hull. with the privilege of having a master teacher, Reverend Leo Brill. In those days, the class was large and there was a lot of talent. And every one of us found a position in one of the leading synagogues in this country and abroad. In those days, every shul I knew of had a full-time chazan. When unfortunately Reverend Bill passed away and Jews College died as well, to his credit, it still ran a course for lay Bali Tefillah. I was privileged to be the examiner of that course. Jeffrey, my dear friend Jeffrey, ran that course, and so did Steve Robbins at one time. And we were not training a chazanim, we were training lay people in the kehillah to be able to go to the Yomad and daven correctly with correct nusach. If we lose nusach hatfilah, we lose a major part of our Masorah. It would be a tragedy. And in many shuls, it's already been lost if it ever was there in the first place. So I think we do need to think very carefully how we can ensure the survival of Nusach HaTfilah. And possibly one way forward will be to recreate that course that was run for Balavatim. It was very useful for the shuls themselves. They were not able always to pay large fees for members for chazanim to come and officiate on special occasions. The course was originally for the Yom HaNoraim. It got extended. It was then course for Shabbos, and it was just the Shalosh Regalim. And all those who graduated were able to go to the Yom and daven correctly. That, in my view, would be the first step to ensuring that our Masorah would be protected.
Thank you very much, Michael. And let me just point out that, as you said, this in the 60s, we're talking about 60 years ago.
Yep.
Secondly, all the people who graduated got jobs, paid jobs in synagogues, okay? Yep. Today, there is one full-time cantor in London, certainly, and he doesn't belong to the United Synagogue. And the question of training is obviously important, but why train if nobody's going to employ you? That's my question. Stephen, you wanted to say something quickly?
Yes, I did. My experience over the last 40 or 50 years is it depends on the community. And there are many shuls that lend themselves to a chazan and plus a choir, maybe monthly, if not weekly. But there are many shuls that do not lend themselves to having a chazan with the complete nusach. And I think far more important is to get people to engage with their communities, with their shuls, with tefillah in whatever way suits that community. And I'd much rather have a full shul, a vibrant shul, singing Carlbach and enjoying themselves than an empty shul, particularly a cathedral-style shul with a dozen people in it. And I feel very strongly about that. I think Nusach is important, but it's not the be-all and end-all. And I'm aware that I'm talking to 95% of the listeners who would disagree with me, but I have sung with the Shabbaton choir for nearly 30 years and met and sang with some wonderful chazans, but the community is more important. And when a chazan, like Albie said, and Rami Freilich and many others, have turned their chazanot into a wonderful, beautiful art and engaging with their communities, that's phenomenal. But not many chazans do that.
Okay.
And I'm slightly against Nusach at the risk of alienating people from coming. The younger people do not want the Nusach on the whole.
Okay, so you're talking about engaging your community with music, not necessarily. Next person, who else? Flora, you had your hand up. Are you there still? Or have you taken...
Yes, I am. I've had a good evening. I've had a lot of difficulty with listening because it shut the voices are breaking up, so I have missed quite a bit here and there. I'm a person, I love music. I think, and I love liturgical music, and to me it's ochel nefesh, it's real food for the soul. And I think it's got a lot to do with education. I know that you're going to laugh at me, or you may not laugh at me, I don't know this, but you know, if only, you know, when you're in shul on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and you're talking about shorter services, it's the most beautiful thing on Yom Kippur. You know, you don't want to even eat. I mean, I'm a person, I'm drinking non-stop. Music is so important to our lives. I read something in last week's JC. I can't remember the name of the Israeli singer, but she says, she's a singer and a songwriter, and she says music is
I don't know whether it's the money or whatever.
Go on.
So just a moment, somebody is unmuted and talking on the phone. Could they mute themselves, please? And that's it. Okay. I'll just try and see who it is and mute them. Sorry about this.
Morris Minsky, can you mute, please?
Okay. It's my wife and the other.
Yes, well, just mute yourself. Everybody should please keep muted unless you're talking. So, Flora, thank you. Continue. Flora.
I'm so sorry. There's so many things I need to say. First of all, a chazan is a very important person. I think it must be in the Mishnah or wherever it is. It says that the chazan is more important than the rabbi. So maybe we should have a chazan rabbi, Reverend Alvi. Chazan Alvi was talking about. I got most of what he said. So that's a very important thing. And I was talking about an Israeli songwriter. And I read it in the JC. I can't remember. I don't normally get the JC. I just happened to read it. Or was it the Jewish News? Music is my religion. It's the only pure and sane place left in the world. And that's how I feel about music. That's how I feel about synagogue music. And I feel it's so sad, and I'm a teacher myself, that we can't bring that love over, because I know quite a few women who've come back to shul because of the chazan, because of the beautiful singing. We in Edgeware have had the most amazing chazanim. I'm not singling anybody out. They're all wonderful. And I like each and every one of them. They all had their strengths and whatever. They all had their own inimitable way of putting things over. And you need audience participation. And I think really we shouldn't just put this on the shelf. There should be some sort of course that people should come along and, you know, shorter services. All right. I don't mind the longer services, but yes, all right, short audience participation. But Nusach is so beautiful. And if we can only learn, I know I have some children, my sons, they don't like Chazanot at all, and I wish they would like it. And I sometimes, when I hear this beautiful music, and it almost tears your heart, I think, I wish I could transmit it to them, but I can't. So I realize that I'm talking about myself personally. But as a teacher, we do want to bring things over, and we can. And I don't think we put enough stress on liturgical chazanot music, the beauty of it. I mean, it's very uplifting. It's very inspiring more than any other things, because the words of our prayers, and if we can try and understand some of them, our petitions, our praises, our prayers, whatever we want to call them, tefillot, tehilot, bakashot, whatever, they come to life through the music. And that's how I feel. And I don't think there's anybody sitting in the room who wouldn't agree with me. When you hear beautiful music, heartfelt, and the chazan is actually, you know, you can see the genuine feeling that they have when they are singing their hearts out. They're really praying to Hashem. For us, they are our shaliach tzibur. They're the people who to pray. It's our mouthpieces in a way. And it's a shame that we can't get people to have this love. And I think we can do it if we have classes or whatever it is. The chazanim spend a bit of time and grab people. They're going to be 2 or 3 people coming along, but you want to get more, you grab them. You actually say, come on, I want you to come along. Don't just say, let's leave it. You know, it's 60 years ago and it's gone, and there's no more Jewish college, and there's no more this teacher, chazan training or whatever. To me, I think religion will lose a lot if we lose the musical part of it.
Thank you, Flora. I think what you're saying is resonant with everybody. I'm just going to put in, if I may, a kind of forward-looking suggestion. You know, there used to be the Blue Book. The Blue Book was everybody's Bible. You knew what music you could sing. The choir could sing it. It was there for you. And it unified the whole British Empire. You could go into a shul in Canada or in South Africa and you'd hear the same music. That's also gone. So I'm not saying these things should be lost, Flora, at all. I'm just saying they're far behind. How do we get back what we think we want? And one suggestion I'd like to make is that, you know, as Stephen Lees pointed out, there's nothing on the United Synagogue website that mentions a chazan, not even the word, or not even a cantor. There's no picture. There are pictures of every rabbi. You know, why is there not a music director in the United Synagogue? And by the same token, the European Cantors Association would like to suggest that every synagogue appoints a music director. It could be the cantor, it could be a woman in the congregation, it could be anybody who's interested in the music. And their job would be to look at the history of the music in that community, write it down, collect it, go and look in the choir loft to see what music is lying around there, rotting away. And that person could communicate with the person at the United Synagogue. And somehow we would create a structure. It doesn't cost anything. We'd create a structure where music becomes something of significance. And when you've got the structure and the communication links, then maybe those people who want to say what it should be can do that. So that's just my little intersperse there. Stephen Sanford, you wanted to say something. Leah, I'm going to go to people who haven't spoken already.
Yeah, hi there. As two of the slightly younger representatives, especially my son here, Rafi, some of you will know it. I can see that. So just to give a little introduction, Rafi was before his voice broke, was the boys soloist with the London Cantorals, and has davened at Edgware United as part of Project Harmony and in his own right, and elsewhere. But listening very interestingly as people who both love cantorals, but also the more modern, if you like, Baltavilla way. So I'm just going to pass over to Rafi, if that's okay, so you can hear perhaps what some of the younger people are thinking at the moment.
Yeah, hi everyone. I think what's really important looking forward is that, I guess in my point of view, there's two kind of things. There's having a chazan in a shul where everyone's sitting there and you're listening to the chazan, and everyone's kind of passive in shul. They're not really doing anything apart from listening to the chazan. Or there's the kind of thing where the chazan, they will start singing to have the whole congregation is singing with them. I think nusach is incredibly important. I think you need to have and I think I daven on Shabbos, I daven in a youth minyan, and I agree that nusach needs to be important. You can't really have a flowing service without nusach. And I think for things like Chazot Hashas and Kaddish, that kind of thing, you need to have the right nusach. But when it comes to things like Kedusha, it needs to be that it's not a chazan. It needs to be that there's someone there singing who's there to try and get the whole congregation to be singing with them, to bring out tunes that everyone knows, that everyone can sing along with, stuff like that, or Kel Adon or Enkel Akenu. It needs to be a chance for the whole congregation, because I feel like that's what nowadays people want to listen to. However, I also do feel like that's for Shabbos, but for Yom Narayim, that should be when you bring out the choirs, when you bring out the proper traditional chazans.
Thank you. What I'd like to say is how two things. Let's leave out the word chazan, it's almost like a song leader. The person we're talking about is the song leader, somebody who can do the beautiful prayers and the chazanut, but he can also bring the audience. That's the person we want, somebody who knows the community because he's employed by them. The other question I wanted to ask you, what are your aspirations or your ambition? Would you like to be a chazan? And if so, what future is there for you?
Well, what I'd love to do, Imo, is to I aspire to be doing chuppahs and that kind of thing, as well as being I wouldn't necessarily say a chazan in a shul, but someone who goes around to try and bring a bit of ruach to get that congregation to start singing in, let's say, places where there's not much inspiration, to go around to sing tunes that everyone knows, to get the whole congregation to be lively and singing with them.
Okay, and you hope somebody will employ you to do that?
I don't think it's necessary to be in one specific shul every week. Otherwise, it gets the same thing regularly.
Could the United Synagogue employ you to go around to all the synagogues?
Yeah, I think that is the way forward. That you have names that will go traveling around every different week to go to a different place. The established names, but they go around to try and bring a different atmosphere, a different effect, rather than having the same person or the same thing every week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Josie Stern, I can't see you. Your video is not on, but if you could switch it on, it would be good.
There we go.
There you are.
Hi, everybody.
Just introduce yourself.
No, I think let's just talk tachlis. I don't need to sing my own praises, but I've been in the choir and the chazunas business for many years and sung with the greats. And now, like, just a point, losing Moshe Stern takes me back to my youth. At Bar Mitzvah, I was the chazan and he was the little boy soloist. So we have a long history. Geraldine, in a way, you stole my thunder, because I think the way forward is exactly as you describe. And that is that each shul should have, as they have a portfolio for education, a portfolio for for kiddushim, a portfolio for the youth, so they should have a portfolio for music, and under which that should falls the whole concept of the, let's call it the Shaliach Tzibur. The Shaliach Tzibur is so important. The Shulchan Aruch really dictates and just describes exactly what the Shaliach Tzibur should be, and who should be appointed, and how he should be accepted into the community. And by each shul having this portfolio, so you will elevate the level of chazanut, or of davening. So you will have to insist, because it will fall under, as you said, the umbrella of the United Synagogues. So each shul will have to aspire higher and higher to the concept of a better quality of davening, a better quality of nusach. Just one point I'd like to address, and that is, if we abandon nusach, the question was raised, why have nusach completely? I think if you abandon any form of structure, which is our heritage, which is our entire tefillah based from the temple time, there's going to be anarchy, musical anarchy. Sure, we've got anything, you can sing anything, because that's in fact what's happening in today's shul. They sing anything. Erev Shoshanim, Kedusha becomes no Kedusha, because they're singing Al Kol Eileh. And that for me isn't working. So number one, I feel what your recommendation is that each shul have a portfolio. Number two, I feel the point that Stephen Lees made was that the rabbis, the United Synagogues website doesn't mention the chazan. The rabbis are paramount. Not only do they have one rabbi in a shul, but they'll have two rabbis, because there's the youth, there's the this, there's the that. And the role of chazan the role of Shaliach Tzibur has fallen away. So let me propose this. Why don't we have lay leaders giving the sermon and employ a chazan instead? You understand the concept. Chas v'chalila, I will say replace the rabbi, but what I am saying is that they're negating the role of the chazan. And in terms of the chazan choir situation, that we're on a hiding to nothing, because as soon as you say choir, they say oy vey time, oy vey this. So that's the legacy that we bring. However, if we bring in, now this is very controversial, and I'm expressing it now. If we bring in the rabbinate, tefillah is not from the Torah. It's not midoraita. It's not midoraita. So if you want to shorten the service, we can take out some tefillot. We can take out some tehillim. It's man-made. It's man-designed. Why not look at it from that aspect point of view? Because the music is what I feel is the soul of the music. And lastly, the content that was mentioned by a young, I forget his name, I know him, I met him at the choir, and that is the quality, what type of music. We don't need to do blue book music all the time. We need to contemporize our music, and there is lots of music around, and lots of music that are soulful and are meaningful and have been designed for tefillah that can be applied all over the place. And there is a lot of music around, and we need to propagate that. And we can through this agency within each shul. I've said enough.
Thank you very much. I think what you said is very valuable. Jack Kessler, you could unmute and...
Thank you. I've been listening to all the wise explanations of where everybody is at, and I'd like to suggest a couple of parameters that are operative in our era. I direct the cantorial program of Aleph, and I'm definitely very big on classical nusach, just full disclosure here. One situation, the big situation we're struck with now is that we are tumbleweeds. A tumbleweed is it's a kind of plant that blows across the Western American deserts that has no roots. We have lost our roots. The last couple of 100 years, never mind the 20th century, have been bad for Yiddishkeit, shall we say. And the advantage of music is that it goes straight to the heart. Therefore, I feel very strongly that the power of music, including the classical grounding of the musical tradition we have that lasts, in some cases, well, it's been around for over 1,000 years, is of tremendous psychic significance for Am Yisrael to continue to live. The way services are done varies from congregation to congregation. In some places, you have somebody doing a very, shall we say, performative. Somebody sings the whole thing. Zalman Schachter used to call this the 747 school of service, where you sit back and somebody does the flying for you. The other extreme of that spectrum is where everybody sings enjoyable folk melodies all together. And I submit that Jewish prayer is a balance. It's a dynamic balance of solo leadership and congregational participation. And apropos of that, the fact is we have folk melodies all over the place. We have had folk melodies since the 12th century or earlier. The rabbis were complaining about us chazonim bringing in new melodies, some of which are old and beloved traditional nowadays. There is a constant influx and, for that matter, outflux of folk melodies in shul. Some of them will stick, some of them will be in actually nusach mode, and some of them will be completely for somewhere else. What we have now is a fantastic opportunity to look at the way, the dynamics of services, the energy dynamic of the davana in the room is it's more than just the leader, and it's more than just the congregants. And to do something like this and take it to a high place, I submit, requires a certain, if you'll pardon the term, professional expertise, a certain level of skill to be able to handle that kind of energy so that the congregation will have a satisfying emotional and spiritual experience. And beyond that, I suppose I don't have to say anything about the educational issue for Yidden, because you can stand there and sing fantastic, incredible, beautiful spiritual things, and it can sound very lovely and you can appreciate it, but it really helps if you understand the language it's being sung in. So we do have a pretty big educational situation. Suppose we were to, here's the ideal world, where the Yidden who come to shul understand exactly what the chazan is doing and why, and they rise to the occasion and join in the dynamic of the singing process. That would be nice. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Thanks so much. Julian Dawes.
Yes, I agree wholeheartedly with everything that's been said about the importance of Nusach and the importance of a congregational participation. What I want to say is that, however, is that there's a lot of other kinds of music in the synagogue. A lot of music that's been specifically composed for the synagogue. And that music is very often not 1,000 years old, but was in many cases written towards the end of the 19th century. Now, I'm not speaking as a chazan. I'm a composer, and I have written some things for the synagogue, particularly for the High Holy Days. But I would have liked to have written a lot more. I want to say that if you take Lewandowski as a good example, a lot of some tunes that he wrote, people love, were once upon a time new pieces of music, and they had to get to be known. I'm somebody who would have liked to have written more music than I have for the synagogue. And I would hope that that would be also something that would be taken account of.
Thank you, Julian. And you have written some wonderful music, and you make the point that, you know, Lewandowski and also were new music that had to get used to. Now, there's certain people here that I'd really like to say something, people like Jackie Chernett, Alex Knapp, who might have something to say. So please do raise your hand, because we'd like to hear from you. And I can't see everybody who should be saying something, but please feel free to join in this discussion, because it's really important, because, you know, something has to happen. If what we think we want is going to be maintained, then we need to do something about it. Jackie Chernett.
Thank you, Geraldine. And it's great to see so many people in this discussion, which is obviously I'm very passionate about. There are a lot of wonderful things have been said, and it's lovely to see Morenu Chazan, Jack Kessler, here. And thank you, Jack, for your words, because you know, they really ring with me. They very resonate, certainly. For many, many years, my colleagues and I have taken this question very seriously and practically, because we knew that the demographics of Jewish life doesn't rely on large synagogues anymore with choirs and chazanim, and nobody's paying a chazan anymore. Very few people are paying them. they're not getting jobs. So if we are passionate about Nusach, we are passionate about getting our congregants to daven, the job of the Shliach Tzibur is to enable their congregation in prayer. That's the task. They've got to get out of their ego, totally out of their ego. It's not simple. And that they have to know how to embrace a kahila. Because at any given time, there is somebody who is crying, being bereaved, lost a job, all sorts of terrible things, illness, awful things happening in the same congregation as someone who's just had a grandchild or having this great joy. The Chazan, the Shliach Tzibur, won't say Chazan because there are very few of them left. The Shliach Tzibur has to hold that kahila, the people, and they have to hold them with love. And the only person I heard talking about love was Flora. It's about love. And forget the money. Cousin Jack said before, I'm only in it for the money. This is a big joke. Hi. It's not, you can't expect that now. So for years, we've been training committed and serious lay people to daven, to learn what they need to learn and what they want to learn. And I'm very, very proud that our organization, the European Academy for Jewish Liturgy, has now graduated its 4th Baal Tefillah. We don't call them Chazan because we're not giving them the extra things in pastoral duties. We could and ordain them. We haven't done that yet. But we've got some very good Ba'alei Tefillah who learn the complete Matbeah Tefillah for every day of the year. They learn all the cantillation systems. They can do life cycle events. We have been doing this all over the world since 2007. The opportunity is there. That's what we're doing. My colleague Chazan Yalda Rebling, who is in Berlin, I'm in London, she is now the director of studies. And we've just got 3 new students. They're from all over the place. We've got them in Finland and in New Zealand, and they're everywhere. And they're all learning traditional Nusach. And we bring them together in events to show them how to build kahila, how to love community, how to embrace. That's what it's about. We have to love our people and love our tradition. And that's what we do.
Thank you, Jackie, and you do it so well. And I think it's good for us all to know that EJL, the European Academy, exists and anybody can join it from wherever you are.
Yes, from everywhere.
They put teachers together with students and teach them how to involve the community in the love of music and in the love of Judaism. So thank you, Jackie, for saying that.
Geraldine, can I just say something from firsthand, just very quickly? I went to Paris to a European EJL event, and it was out of this world. Why? Because all the different communities from all over Europe got together and they had unity, they had love, they had respect, and they had atmosphere. And this was created by EJL and the various other groups. I think that if I remember correctly, the guest was Sol Zim and Stephen Storr from the Cantors Assembly. And it was the most magnificent eye-opener of a Shabbat and weekend in Paris, where atmosphere, warmth and love was the forefront, as well as singing and correct Nusach and correct Hebrew pronunciation, which is very, very important. The Diktuk was there, and that is something, unfortunately, which is lacking in other groups. So kol hakavod to what Jackie's done over the years. I've been a good supporter, and I will continue to support Jackie as she supports the ECA as well. Thank you.
Great, Alex. Morris Minsky, you wanted to say something?
About a year ago, I had a long discussion with the chief executive of the London School of Jewish Studies, and I said we do need to have a body who will uptake, not necessarily as a chazan, because we won't get them here in England, we can't afford it, but the ballet tefillahs. And the reply I got was, it's always down to money. I said, there's got to be another way. And I could do with the help of the European cantors, like Russell Grossman, your good self, Alex, and others, to really get to grips with the situation by the chief rabbi, Michael Gosling of the US. Jackie Charnick mentioned, was it European Academy? What was the full title of that organization?
Liturgical European
Jewish,
Academy.
it's called the European Academy for Jewish Liturgy, and its acronym is EJL, and it's based on the eagle, like EJL, which is Al Kanfei Sharim,
Yes.
or Al Kanfei Sharim. There you go.
Yes, that's good. But I want to see what we can do from this end, because
well, we can do it for you, with you.
Okay.
Because it's nothing to do with Orthodox. We're not Reform. We're a pluralist academy.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
There happen to be women, because women, you know, I'm a chazan and so is my colleague.
Yes.
You know, we've got smicha. So you know, and it's for everybody. We deal with this traditional nusach, and we find appropriate teachers. If somebody wants an Orthodox teacher, we'll find them an Orthodox teacher, and they'll do that. That's what we do. We've been doing it for years, and we've had the whole point of it was to enable communities to sustain themselves. To enable communities to sustain themselves.
Right.
And without that leadership, forget it. And
what was the title of the website of it again? It was EJ.
Well, she can put it on the
EAJL. I'll put it on the chat.
Put it on the chat, or if I can repeat. So thank you, Boris.
Thank you.
You know, I think, you know, we don't need to reinvent the wheel or double down on what somebody is doing. Here is a system that can deal with learning, and we should empower it more and more. Robert Brody.
Hello, good evening. Lovely to be part of this session. I think from what I've heard so far, there's a confusion between what I refer to as nusach and the compositions which are sung in shul with choirs. Nusach, I think, is the chazan by himself going through the service according to the day, the festival, and it's been overtaken largely by Israeli influences. There's a version of Hallel which is Israeli, and it's just used on all the Yom Tovim. It may be it's an artificial nusach, I think, because the songs that we associate with the Chagim, the Shalosh Regalim, are set down in this magic blue book. How they originated, I don't think we know, but it has become Nusach Anglia. And I think that should be distinguished from the Lewandowski's, the sorts of the main compositions, which also we've come to love, but are not really part of davening. I think there are a few reasons why those compositions are no longer heard. One reason, I think, is that in the days when the choirs were up in the gallery, the children would sit with their fathers and they'd absorb the music and know it, be familiar with it. The custom changed some, 20, 30 years ago. The choirs no longer wanted to be in the gallery. The advantage was that they had a better contact with the chazan. Often from the choir galleries, there's no visual contact and they felt remote. But when the choir was sitting in the main congregation, there's no way the kids would sit with their fathers and absorb this music.
Thank you. And, you know, the dearth of children's choirs is another obvious reason where children don't get to know the music.
Well, I think the children have been taken out of the service, out of the main service by the children's service, which is another reason why they don't know the music. And also I think the time has changed. In the past, I know as a kid at Yizka time, you'd see people crying their eyes out. Just don't see that anymore. I don't think people regard the shul as a place to release their emotional tensions. So that's changed, and so they're not going to sit and be happy listening to a chazan crying his eyes out and singing his eyes out. Maybe a piece that's not even appropriate to be crying about. Also, as a acting as a chazan, I don't call myself a chazan because, as Albi said, there's more to being a chazan than being able to sing. And people sometimes at a concert or something will refer to me as chazan, but I resist that because there's no way I'm a chazan. I also have problem with some of these pieces that are beautifully, very musical pieces, but you're singing words like V'hoshev Esro Avodo, and there's no way I want V'hoshev Esro Avodo. I don't want the I use the word bloody sacrifices. I'm not swearing. Also, another thing is that some of the chazanim that are pouring their hearts out while they're singing, or just singing, don't have the voices that people can hear on their computers or anything else. People know now what a good singer sounds like. And very often a chazan who may be a wonderful chazan as a pastor and as a communal chazan, they don't have the vocal talent that people are going to want to sit and listen to. What else have I put on my list? Yes, the music that we are referring to, not as nusach, but the compositions by Zolzer and Lewandowski, they do still exist. Just last week, I was at the European Jewish Choirs Association meeting in Vienna, and I had the privilege of singing Zolzer's L'Chadodi in front of an audience approaching 1,000 people with the massed choirs behind me, which was a great privilege, and it was a composition that was very much loved by that audience. But whether they'd want to hear it on a Friday night, I doubt very much. So that's my contribution.
Thank you, Robert. Yoav is now the cantor at the New London Synagogue. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Delvin. And can you hear me okay?
Come nearer to your microphone.
Okay, just a second. So in light of not using cantor, I'm the cantorial lead in New London Synagogue, and I think in terms of where the future and where's it all going, Nusach is the absolute vital key to it all, being the transporter for the words that we're going on, because what it does is it takes us from A to B faster. As in every opera, you need a recitative, you need something that kind of passes this bit of text along the way. Then you need a moment of the aria where you have that magnificent movement, but without that, all you have is text, and nobody wants to come to listen to text anywhere unless it's in some sort of play or recital. But doing this we'll take it out of synagogue space and out of tefillah into something completely different. Maybe something more towards what the Reform have, where they just read and have alternating English, Hebrew. But without nusach, it's just a bunch of words. And I'm sorry to sound that brutal, but I'm learning nusach with Jacqueline Turnet, Chazan Jacqueline Turnet, and I absolutely love the journey. I love being learning everything from the festival, Shlosh Regalim, to Shabbat, to weekday, to Mincha Shabbat. Everything that we have, that we learn, has to be based on something, because if we don't have the nusach, then we have, as I said, a bunch of words that we put together.
Thank you very much. Well, it's very interesting. Simon, you may want to sum up. I'd just like to say a few things of how we might go forward. It would be interesting for a bunch of people who are here from different places, from different denominations even, to sit together and say, how do we want to make sure that a framework goes forward? You know, how can we help? It seems to be that the people in the United Synagogue or you know, who should be doing this aren't. So how can we help them? How can we provide them with a little framework or a manifesto that's practical that they could use? So I'm just interested to know if some of you would join such a team. And I'm thinking of somebody like Josie Stern, like Jacqueline Chernett, like Yoav, even like Boaz, if he wants to, like you know, to sit down with ECA and create a manifesto. Jack Kessler, you know, so just think about if you would be willing to sit together with half a dozen or a dozen people to think about how we can help to make the things we want happen. Simon.
Yeah,
Not
well,
yes, Simon.
Fascinating discussion. I'm not sure quite how you sum up everything, and clearly there's a lot of concern for the future of music. I think practically, probably what you're saying is correct. If you were trying to get a manifesto, I'd suggest probably launching it something like Lamud, when you've had times that can create more impact. It's cross-denominational, and I think probably that's the way forward. I think the other thing that struck me is, although a lot of people have got anecdotal evidence, there's nothing comprehensive around the community. We don't really know what's going on, as far as I can tell. I mean, when I've written about things, I've picked up things here and there. I've picked up things this evening. But if there's anyone's to say, I mean, you mentioned that there's, I think, one full-time Chazan male. There's, I think I'm right to say, maybe 2 full-time female cantors in the Reform movement. But none of us know actually, well, I'd be wrong in saying none of us know, but I haven't heard tonight anyone saying authoritatively how many people are in positions, either professional or in an honorary position of either as a chazan, cantor, music leader, director of music. And it struck me that's probably a piece of information that would be helpful to know who actually would be responsible for coordinating. I'm not sure, but perhaps that's something the Jewish Music Institute might want to look at, so it has an authoritative picture to present when it presents a manifesto.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you so much for being with us. You know, your stature and your interest in the subject has been a catalyst to bring a lot of people together. So we're really grateful for you giving us the time and, you know, perhaps helping us in some way to move forward. And I'd be very interested to know if people who've got hands up who could put their hands down, because you probably need, but if you could put a hand up, if you'd be willing to sit with a little group of other like-minded people to try and do these things. So Charlie Heller, I'm really glad to see you. Now, can you all email me? I think that'll be the easiest, because the chat sometimes disappears. So email me if you're prepared to sit down with, and we'll arrange a meeting and we'll see. And as you say, we need to know the facts first, Simon. We need to know what's actually happening. We need to know, you know, what interest there is. And we need to see if we can get synagogue music officers in the synagogues and in the music in the synagogal bodies. And I'm not sure if Malcolm Singer wanted to come along today. He is the music director of music at West London Synagogue. And they have a music director, they have a choir director, they have they have meetings, they have music, they decide on music, there is a music structure. The Reform Synagogue had a music director. Viv Bellos used to be the music director. She used to arrange choir festivals, and she was the singer. So, what is
Belsize Square has a musical director.
Well, it has a full-time cousin as well.
Yeah.
And so, who thinks it's important? What my whole feeling is if the leaders of the synagogue movements don't sit up and take notice, it disappears.
Could you put your email in the chat and announce it now, please?
Okay, well, look, my email could just be geraldine@cantors.eu. Cantors.eu, that's my European Cantors Association email. Geraldine@cantors.eu, because we're European, so we had an EU, and then we had a problem after Brexit, how we could keep up.
Mine's also there if you need it. Alex@cantors.eu.
Alex@cantors.eu.
Can I just mention?
Alex, yes.
We're on to our 15th convention, and the beauty of our conventions are the fact that everybody, we're non-political, we're non-denominational, everybody is welcome to get together and to share information, to learn from each other, and from the common Jew in the pew to the cantors from all around the world. And what we do is we do something wonderful. Everybody who joins us becomes part of a family, because we were talking about shul services, and people have mentioned before, there are people who are grieving, there are people who are happy, there are people who need with other problems. So to come into shul for a service or meeting like-minded people and sitting with them, you get that warmth that permeates through synagogue services and the atmosphere that has been created in the shul. We, thank God, have created something of an atmosphere, and we're very, very well known for it. So our next convention will be in Hanover in November, and it's a very, very special one because we're celebrating or remembering the 80th anniversary of Kristallnacht, and we are taking part in the formal ceremony of marking Kristallnacht. We also have been invited by the President of Parliament to come to Parliament during a parliamentary session, and the Lady President will address us, and we will speak to her and sing for her, which has never been done before. As we are ambassadors for Jewish liturgical music. And we're also going to have, a VIP concert, workrooms, and various other things that we are doing. So pioneers we are the only people with a convention of the kind that we do, and we are welcoming to everybody and anybody who would like to take part and become part of our family. If you are interested, please drop us a line. Give us your emails and we will send you the information, and we will look forward to seeing you, hearing you, and you joining us and being part of our family. I would like to thank Simon Rocker very much for coming and joining us and opening these things up. Geraldine for putting it together and coordinating, Edgware and Spencer for being our hosts, and may we continue to give you thought-provoking programs for now and for the future. But within those thought-provoking programs, please don't just listen. If you have an opinion, we'd like to know what it is. We'd like to hear about it. The only way you can move forward is if you actually tell us what is going on and what you think you would like to see. And that's how progress comes about. Silence doesn't bring progress, but by being, informing and maybe getting a group together and doing something about it is a positive way forward. So please help us help you to help us to help you, if you know what I mean. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Have a great week ahead. And please God, we hope to see you again very, very soon.
In Hanover. And now Spencer will tell us about the next meeting that we can enjoy from the Square.
Well, I too would like to thank the JC Simon Rocker for chairing this session, and the ECA team, particularly Alex Klein and Geraldine Albach, for preparing all the material, and to all of you who spoke for your helpful comments and suggestions. A recording of tonight's proceedings will shortly be uploaded to the Edgware US YouTube channel. Our next cantorial session will be on Tuesday, the 27th of June, when Rabbi Jeffrey Schistler will give a presentation on composing synagogue music for the 21st century, the music of Rabbi Jeffrey Schistler. Before that, the next adult education session in Edgware Shul will be on Tuesday, the 13th of June at 8:30 p.m. in the Shul Hall, when Ed Horwich, the Chief Executive of the Jewish Small Communities Network, will be speaking on stories of Britain's small Jewish communities. You can find the current complete biannual program by clicking on the front page of the weekly Edgware highlights. Details of the current Edgware program can be found on our website, www.edgwareu.com, or alternatively, you can contact our office@edgwareu.com, and ask to be placed on the circulation list for the adult education program. Thank you all for attending tonight and your very helpful suggestions.